Another cacophony of "oh no's" was soon to follow, as our headmaster held up a terrifyingly thick bundle of paper. "He's up to no good," whispered Kai, who sat between me and Louisa, shaking his head yet at Dawn. "No, really, brace yourself. This is history repeating itself." He turned to Louisa as well. "Last year the school board decided on an act of benevolence and gave us a singular free day, and he made 348 individual homework sheets. 348, because the two of you weren't here yet, one for each student, to keep us from enjoying our day off and to keep us from just copying the results from each other." Neither Louisa and I had ever heard of that incident, since, as Kai had smartly recognized himself, we'd only been visiting the school for a couple months. Our fellow pupils, on the other hand, seemed to remember it all too well. The "oh no's" didn't even get a chance to die out, because Mr. Lunches waved a stack of paper as if he were swatting a bunch of annoying flies, us most likely. The auditorium became marginally quieter. "Just so you don't spend your holidays uselessly playing video games, watching TV, or just lazing around. Remember the words of Solomon: idleness turns to inaction, and the lethargic ones to a staff." "Who's that Solomon he keeps talking about?" Louisa wondered. "No idea," Kai shrugged. "Maybe some politician? I don't know." I sighed and corrected them. "King Solomon's a figure from the Bible, and he's supposed to be really smart." And the headmaster continued his speech of terror. Because we wanted to prevent any confrontations with the school board in regard to this week of unprecedented holidays, we, the teachers of the school, spent the entire night— "I told you so," mumbled Kai, barely audible next to me. "Those poor teachers don't get enough sleep, and we are the ones suffering from it when they're all mean and grumpy in the mornings, creating an intensive workbook for each grade. These workbooks are to be worked on by each student on their own and independently. After these truly unfortunate holidays, your teachers will come to collect and mark these workbooks. And now I would please ask you to listen to me very carefully." He paused, clearly enjoying the anticipation of knowing the horrors he was about to unleash on the student body. "The mark you will receive for this workbook will make up the equivalent of 3 class tests on one of your core subjects." We were momentarily frozen in shock, only to break out into the longest and loudest cacophony of "oh no's" this auditorium, or maybe even the entirety of Radau, had ever heard. Headmaster Lunches didn't seem bothered in the slightest. He was deaf to the "oh no's" of his students, as most students were deaf to the "clean your rooms" of their mothers. And for the first time in my life I started to think about the otherwise nonsensical phrase, "when someone strikes you on your right cheek, turn the other one to him as well," in connection to the phrase, "thou shalt honor your mother and father." Maybe he would have been more receptive to our "oh no's" and would have only counted our workbooks as one class test if we'd clean our rooms a little more often. Who knows, maybe he had a son himself that never cleaned his room and never listened to his father, and he took his revenge by turning a deaf ear towards us and our protests against his unnecessarily harsh holiday homework. Thus he distributed the workbooks, completely and utterly unmoved by our cries for mercy. I received my own stack of papers and noticed that a good third of it consisted of math problems, something I was quite proficient at least now as a third grader. But of course there was also the inevitable writing task: how I spent my holidays. Well, I sure already know what I was going to write for that task. I spent my holidays working on the stupid workbook. Chapter 2, in which we come to a decision. "Oh no," groaned Louisa, who had noticed the same essay in her workbook. "We have to write another stupid essay about how we spend our holidays. I never get up to anything interesting during the holidays." "Like what? They expect me to write about Christmas cookies and scattered Christmas candles." "Well, I'd say we got up to quite a few things the last holidays, didn't we?" said Kai. "We caught a thief, or rather almost caught a thief, since we never saw the actual thief. But we definitely stopped any further thefts from happening, right?" I nodded. Whenever Bubblegum and I had stopped by during a weekend post-New Year's Eve, I'd ask my dad if he kept noticing money being stolen, and the conversations went about something like this. "Hey Dad, have you kept losing part of the church donations, like you told me it happened before Christmas?" "It's an odd thing," my dad admitted and gave me a strange look. Ever since you and your friends came over, I haven't noticed a single cent missing. Well, that means there was one during the last invoice that rolled off the table and into a mouse hole. And so far, the mouse hasn't given it back. Maybe it's keeping the coin as a birthday present for someone, who knows. What's much more interesting, though, is that someone returned 2 50-euro notes, one of them with colored in zeros. That was the one Mr. Pfadbaum had given to us. We'd put it in an envelope and snuck it into the parsonage mailbox, anonymously, of course. And then, a couple days later, another 50 euro, though in smaller notes this time around. It seemed like Mr. Pfadbaum had actually kept his promise of trying to return the stolen money. Anyway, the case of the burglar at the parsonage was over. "How's it look?" Kai demanded to know. "Any chance we could visit your dad over the holidays, all 3 of us? He could pick us up on Sunday or Monday, and we'd still have an entire week. That's worth the long car rides. And bubble gum," added Louise. "And we could see Micah again," Kai added as well. I rolled my head a little, not entirely sure. "I don't know. My mom's in a bit of an unstable situation right now. She's got a new job and trouble with her boyfriend. Well, technically they already broke up last month." "What that?" Louisa asked, curious. Just adult stuff," I cut her off. "Well, you could at least ask your mom, right?" Kai jumped in. "I guess I should ask my dad if he's got the time to pick us up first," I thought out loud. Kai immediately pulled out his phone and handed it to me. "You really enjoyed Thuringia, huh? You know that there's going to be no nativity play in funny costumes this time around." I very lightheartedly made fun of him. "Well, I can't say that was my favorite part of the holidays," Kai tried to defend himself. "I would disagree," Louise giggled. "I overheard him ask a local pastor, he was on his way to visit one of Kai's older neighbors, if he could play an angel in this year's nativity play, dressed in wings, pristine white dress, and golden halo and all that."